Brother wants to know how much you can lift.
What lift?
Deadlift's your worst event, yeah?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I deadlifted 186 at the World's Strongest Woman, and that was after doing 166.
186 kilo.
That's fucked. That's so fucked. I can't do that.
Girls just want to be their boys. Girls just want. Girls just want to be their boys. Girls just want.
Hello everyone, this is the Australian Strongman podcast. I'm here with Red Wiard. She's the back-to-back ASA champion. So Red, how you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, doing well. A little bit about your lifting career. You live in Brisbane. How'd you get into Strongwoman?
I was initially doing powerlifting. I competed in that for about 2 years, and I was just kind of getting a little bit bored with like the squat, bench, dead, and the accessories for that. I wanted to do something a bit more challenging, but I didn't really know. And I think when I first started powerlifting, I had those beginner gains where I was getting like massive increases in my total within the first competitions, and then that started to stagnate. And then I went down to the Arnolds just as a spectator in 2017. I had a friend that was competing in the bodybuilding, and then I'd never even heard of or seen Strongman before. And I remember going over to the Strongman arena and seeing these guys like pulling trucks, and then the Atlas stones was what got me hooked. I thought, this is just crazy. They're lifting a 200 kilo like concrete ball. And then I like Googled Strongman, and then I started training that way, and then I sort of started competing fairly shortly after that because I just thought that it looked so crazy, and I thought, where do I sign up?
So where was your first competition?
It was a local one in Brisbane run by Valhalla, and I initially was going to sign up for the novice division. It was just a 3 lift competition, so it was like static strength. It had your max log press, your max deadlift, and then stone over bar. It was like a set weight at 80 kilos, and then it was like for max height, but you had 3 attempts at each of those events. And I remember seeing like the qualifying weights for nationals, and I was like, oh, I could do those. I'm not going to go into the novice. I'm just going to go into the under 82 kilo weight class because I was sitting around that weight anyway. And so I thought, oh, it's so scary, like signing up for a weight class. But I wasn't a complete novice to weightlifting in general because I had that powerlifting and before that CrossFit back.
Right.
So yeah, that first competition, max log, and I think I got like 60 kilos and I won that event. The second event was max deadlift, and I came second in that event. The girl just pipped me by 2.5 kilos. And then the last event was the stones, 80 kilos for max height. And I look back at that video and my technique was just awful. And I think I'd touched a stone maybe, 2 sessions before that. I got some tips of Mark Wells, who's a very like an old school strongman from back in the day, and he gave me a few coaching tips. I didn't have like a strongman coach at that time, and I came second in the comp and qualified for nationals at my very first strongman comp. So after that I was like, oh, this is kind of cool, maybe I do this a bit more and see how far I can.
Well, so one of your first times touching Atlas stones, you picked up an 80 kilo stone.
Yeah, I picked up a 50 kilo stone, and that was like training in the gym in Panthers Powerlifting where I train in Brisbane. That's all they had, and I think I did that a couple of times. I think maybe I used that just raw, and then when I got a hold of using tacky, I had picked up an 80 kilo stone, but I hadn't got it very high just because my technique was trying to like muscle it up and use a lot of biceps, and now like looking back at how I train stones now to back then, it was it's all in the hips. You've got to use a big extension and pop up and keep the stone nice and high on your chest to get the height.
Yeah, it gets more complicated for sure.
It is a very technical sport, and when you tell people how much you're lifting, lifting an average size human 80 kilos over like 1.3, 1.4 meters, people are like, it must be fake weights. Like, there's no way that you could be lifting that amount of weight. So it's like the shock factor when people who aren't really in the strength community, they find out that you're lifting these amounts of weight, and that's why I love doing it. It's just like, it's the wow factor.
Yeah, that's what drew me to Strongman as well. I grew up watching it when I was a kid.
I never heard of it.
I always knew what Strongman was. I remember it was very, because when I was a kid, you know how you are when you're a kid, like I was lifting weights when I was a kid, but
Were you? How old did you start?
well, I started lifting weights when I was 9. Like my dad had me doing like bench press, like just like basic weights. Then I stopped when I was like
9 years.
Yeah, then I stopped when I was about 13, and I didn't touch a weight until I was like 21. So like I knew technique from the get go and actually properly started lifting weights.
I didn't get into it till much later in life. I mean, I played sports and stuff like that at school. You know, I played netball, I played cricket, and I played footy, like rugby. But then
rugby helps a lot.
Yeah, I didn't like the running part of it. I liked the tackling, you know, like knocking people to the ground. But I hated like the running because I'm short and I've got like little stocky legs. So, you know, I wasn't a very fast runner. But I was good at swimming. You know, I was always good at like the water sports and stuff. Being a Pisces, I'm a little thinner. In my 20s, I was quite overweight and I was traveling and living overseas. Had like a party girl kind of lifestyle. And when I came back from all this travel that I was doing, I said, I need to make a change. I need to lose some weight. And that's when I started getting into weightlifting and really enjoying it quite late in my...
So you compete overseas as well. You're United States Strongman or Strongwoman, Pro Women's Worlds. You came third in that?
One. Yeah.
In 2018.
That was my first international comp.
And you podiumed.
Came third, yeah. It was quite close between the top 3, and yeah, I think I just scraped in. I think the girl that came fourth was only 1 point behind me, so I was super lucky to score that bronze medal, and I won some prize money, which was really awesome.
Arnold Classic, South Africa, second in under 82s, and then
Correct.
You're also ranked 11th under 82 in the world.
At the official Strongman Games in Florida last year, I was hoping to get the top 10. You know, that was a really high goal that I set for myself, and I just missed out.
You're very close.
Oh, so close. But I remember the organizer had said, you know, the top 10 get invited to come back for the following year. And he said, it's always that person that comes 11th that comes back so hungry because they just missed out. So I said, yep, well, that's me.
Yeah, that's you, for sure. What are some of your best lifts since being in Strongwoman?
I really love the yoke walk. I know a lot of people hate it because it like crumples your spine and like makes you all jacked up in the neck and stuff, but that's one of my best events. A lot of the competitions that I've done, I've placed quite highly in the yoke walk. I think because I have quite a good squat and my core is quite strong, it's an event that I really enjoy, and I'm much better at the moving events than the static strength events. So I also really like farmer's carry. I hold a national record in that.
What's the record in that?
My record for farmer's carry is 105 kilos per hand for 15 meters in 11 seconds. And then I've done in training 112 kilos per hand, and I was just shy of the 15 meters.
That's a heavy farmer's walk.
Well, the world record is 115 per hand. So,
for 15 meters?
I mean, for 15 meters,
yeah.
You've got
You've got it.
It's close, I think. You know, keep training, and if there's an event where I get the opportunity to do that, I'm going to give it a crack for sure.
What do you do to train farmers? So what do you do for your grip?
Do farmers.
Just farmers?
Farmers is to do farmers. Yeah, but I have grip work and stuff in my program. Like, I don't think that I have like particularly big hands or anything. Usually people that are good at grip work, you look at Mark Felix, he has ginormous hands, and when I met him in America, I got a picture of me like with his hand up against mine, and I just looked like a midget compared to him, and he holds multiple world records in grip strength, like the Hercules hold where you stand there on that big cross, and like the Denny ring, the Denny replica handles, and farmer's carry. So he's got ginormous hands. He held the Hercules hold for like some massive amount of time, like maybe it was close to a minute, and he was like shaking at the end of it, using all of his energy, and everyone else was getting around like 20-30 seconds tops. So he was ahead by a mile in that particular event.
He's a grip specialist, eh?
Yeah.
So when you do farmers, how do you sort of program it? You train it often, heavy, you do a lot of light, long distance?
The training for the Arnolds had a 100 kilos per hand farmer's carry for 20 meters, and my training definitely depends on the events and the competitions that I have coming up. I do enjoy farmers, and I think that is one of your staple strongman movements. So I had it in my program twice a week. Once was kind of like a light for long distance, so I might do like a 40-meter carry at about 60 kilos a hand, and that would like work on my conditioning and still be holding that, but it wasn't particularly heavy. And then the second day that I would train farmers would be quite heavy, so we're sort of talking like 85, 90 kilos, something like that, and it would just be for maybe 2 or 3 runs at about 15 or 20 meters.
All right. They had 100 kilo at the Arnold's, so that's basically the national record almost.
Well, yeah, for the under 82 kilo weight class, that was our set weight. I liked it how it was no drops. Like as soon as you drop it, that's it, you're out. Because that's the thing. When you pick it up, it's such a huge like strain on your body when you're picking up 200 kilos. What happened to me in the States, they had a 103, like it was the pounds conversion. You had to do 15 meters up, you had to turn around a keg and then 15 meters back. If I was just to pick it up and just walk in a straight line, I'm quite quick with that, but the turn with the farmer's handles starts, twisting your body one way, and then you have to try and correct it.
That's very tricky. That's it. Yeah, everyone that does it, they don't do it right. It twists you and you end up going sideways.
And you end up like feeling like a crab, or Tokyo Drift, going sideways.
Yeah.
But my tactic for that was, get around the keg, come in nice and wide, like do a big hook, and then as soon as I'd done the turn, drop it and then repick, because then I'd be going straight again. Yeah, I was quite far like in front for the first stretch, and then going around the keg, the other girls were faster than me. I dropped it, they kept going, and then when I repicked it, I caught up to them by the end, because when I'm going in a straight line, like I can go quickly.
So it worked out for you really well.
I think I came like 8th or 9th in the farmers event, which was my best placing out of all of the events. Unfortunately, I zeroed the Viking press because overhead pressing is not a strong event for me, and that was the very first event of the competition, and I thought, oh god, I've flown all the way over here and I've zeroed the first event. I felt like pretty beaten up because of that, and I was like, nah, it's fine. I have a couple of other events I know I can catch up on, so I'm not going to let that one event beat me down.
Yeah, I've done that too in competitions. Like first event, you don't do too well, and it can kind of psych you out a bit, but then
I
end up fixing yourself throughout the day.
It happens a lot in strongman. Look, I've been guilty of it as well, but it's really hard sometimes for people to control their emotions when they don't do too well. I mean, it's a sport, it's a game, it's a competition. Everybody has like a bit of a different mindset when they come into it, but if you do poorly in an event, it's really important not to let that beat you up on the inside, because more often than not, there's other events that you will excel at. It's quite rare to have someone who's good at everything, unless you're Naramu.
Yeah.
But some people will have their static strength. Myself, I've got my moving events. So I know that I can catch up in points on the other events if I do poorly in an event that I'm not good at.
One cool thing I've noticed about strongman, like we just mentioned before, hated the farmers, and you sort of had to strategize to make that turn. You don't get that in sports like powerlifting. Like you can try different things. It's really cool.
If you have like an AMRAP of log clean and press, for example, and you are going last in that event because you won the event prior, if the person with the highest score got 6 reps, you don't need to bust out 20 reps. You just need to get 7 reps, because you just need to get one more than them to win that event.
That's the benefits of winning an event and then going last the next event. Since I've competed, all my comps, I never knew that. Up until now, I just found out that.
Rookie error.
So I used to, I'd go last and I'd win the event, but I'd keep going until I had nothing left.
So you just busted in your ass for no reason.
Yeah, because I've always thought that just the more you do, the more points you get, That's how I thought it worked.
You always feel so beat up. I mean, I don't know about you, but my recovery just Like, it takes a long time. I think as you get older, it starts to hurt a lot more when you do some really heavy days or you smash yourself in a competition. And it depends what your mindset is. Like, I knew for nationals, like 2018, I knew that I wanted to win because my goal was to go overseas and qualify for a comp in America. So one of the events was a log press. You had an 80 kilo or a 70 kilo, and they said anybody that does the 80 kilos will out trump any amount of reps on the 70 kilo. Mm-hmm. So out of the girls that were in my weight class, nobody got the 80 kilo log, and the highest score was 2 reps on the 70 kilo log. So I said, okay, all I need is 3 reps on that 70 kilo log, which I knew I could do. So that's what I did, and I won the event. And I wasn't going to bust my ass trying to like keep going with the reps because I knew that I still had 3 more events. And I was like, I'm in this to win this. So I needed to conserve my energy for those other ones.
Who has been your number one rival?
I think that would have to be Lucia Del Noce. I look up to her. I think she's a great strength athlete. She's probably the best in my weight class, under 82 kilos for the middleweight women. You know, she's very, very strong, and at the moment she's unbeatable. It would have been nice to, go to the Arnolds this year if the competition was still running and see how that competition turned out. But I wouldn't say like she's a rival. There's no bad blood there from my end. But she's a very fierce competitor.
What do you love about Strongwoman?
So many things. It's like, where do I start? It's given me a lot of confidence. When you train in strength sports, there's the aesthetics that comes with it as well. So I like the muscles that I've got since I've been doing it. I like the friends that I've made. I like the travel that I've been able to do. Look, it's a hobby. I enjoy it so, so, so much, and I'm not going to be stopping anytime soon.
What don't you love about Strongwoman?
The risk of injury. I haven't had any major injuries in doing strongman, but I have had some major injuries in the past from other sports. Like I've had a knee reconstruction from playing roller derby, so that's affected my squat a bit. I've dislocated and broken these fingers from a skateboarding accident, and I've had a torn labrum and partial tear of my rotator cuff from falling off my push bike, and that's affected my overhead pressing. So I am a little bit cautious of that. If I do have an injury during training strongman, that sets you back not just in your sporting career, but in like my professional career as a nurse, taking time off work and being like hospitalized or having surgery. It is always in the back of my mind, but that's the risk you take when you do a sport like this.
But so far, all your injuries have nothing to do with Strongwoman, ironically.
Nothing.
That's favorite event and why?
Strongman squats, because I have strong squats and I love the feeling of like getting under a bar. Something is so heavy, pushing you down, and then you are just standing that back up. I just love.
I would love to see more squatting in Strongman for sure. I think it's underused.
The Arnold's 2018, they had strongman squats. It was like an AMRAP in a minute, and they had these massive cages on the end. It was an axle bar, and then these crazy cages on the end, and that was all made by Stand or Submit. And when I saw that event, I was like, oh hell yeah! It was like my bread and butter. I banged out 20 reps at 125 kilos. So that to me was like epic. Bring back the strongman squats.
Yeah, for sure. There you go. We're protesting. Bring back the squats. What's your least favorite event and why?
Deadlift. Oh, I have grip issues. Well, it's funny because my grip is good on farmer's carry, but for a deadlift, I've like pretty fucked fingers here, and holding it, my hands start to cramp up sometimes. The risk of peeing yourself on the platform when you do a really, really heavy deadlift, and the risk of like a back injury if you're not like fully tight with everything, and like people arching their back when it gets really heavy, hitching. I know there's a bit of a war between, if it was a clean deadlift or if it was like, yanked up there. Yeah, it still counts, but I don't particularly enjoy deadlift, and it always comes up at so many competitions, and it's just not a strong event for me. After having my knee reconstruction as well, they took part of my hamstring to resect my ligament in my knee, so that posterior chain definitely needs a bit of work. But I am trying to progress that lift, and I said to my coach, I really want to improve my deadlift. So I'm working.
So deadlift is Red's worst event, and it's 186 kilo. and it's a worst event.
Yeah, that was in a suit. My conventional deadlift, like raw with no lifting straps and no equipped suit, is like 165. So for my weight class, that's actually on the lower end of the scale.
You going for that 200 Sunday?
Oh, yeah, it's like that elusive number that, you know, maybe I'll get that in a couple of years. We'll see.
Axle or log?
I think axle press. Yeah, I'm not too fond of log. My liking for it has gotten a little bit better over the years, but I still get a little bit like chickened out when I'm like pressing it overhead because of the width of it. Whereas an axle is more familiar to me because I used to do a bit of ollie lifting, and so like that bar path is much easier for me rather than the thicker logs, especially the 12-inch. I find them quite difficult. You know, I'm a split jerker when it gets heavy. That's my CrossFit and ollie lifting background. I know that I can press more weight when I do it that way. It's allowed, it's in the rules. I'm going to do whatever I can to press the most weight.
I guess we won't talk more about that.
Okay.
So, farmers or yoke?
Yoke, because I can go very, very heavy.
Stones or deadlifts?
Stones, without a doubt. I'm not a fan of the deadlift. Stones is what got me into strongman. Like, I think that's your staple, pinnacle strongman event.
Yeah.
And when you tell someone that you do strongman and they don't know what it is, you explain, the big concrete boulders, and people are like, oh yeah, I know what that is. So you say stones and people go, oh yeah, I know what that sport is.
That's what strongman's known for, yeah. ASW or Arnold's?
I think Arnold's because I like competing in my own division. So I think Arnold's because it does have that under 82 class, whereas Australia's Strongest Man and Woman is just everybody each to their own.
Arnold's or ASA?
ASA has more international opportunities. It's very hard to qualify for the Arnold's in Ohio unless you place on the podium in the Arnold's Australia. To my knowledge, that's the qualifying route to get there. They don't have a online qualifier or anything like that. But for the ASA, there was a lot more opportunities that came up if you placed in the top three. I think if you were first, second, or third, you could get an invite to the United States Strongman, the Pro Women's Worlds at men and women. They both have their each competition. And if you won it in your weight division, you could also get an invite to Florida for the official Strongman Games. So there was 2 big international competitions that you could qualify for from ASA. But as far as I know from the Arnold's, to like get that route to go to Ohio, you had to place in the top 3. However, my qualifying route to get to South Africa, I think it was top 5, but I came like 6th, or tied for 6th and 7th on countback. So I just contacted the organizer and said, I'm really, really keen to come. Like, I would book my flights tomorrow if you tell me that I can have an invite. I really wanted to go overseas and take that opportunity because nobody that placed before me wanted to go. So I think it was just like they took the next competitor down and they said, hey, yeah, you can come. So I think I was just really fortunate to snap up that opportunity.
So I guess that's ASA for you?
Yeah. Oh, sorry, that was a very long-winded answer.
If there are any things you have to deal with that strongmen may not know about. What are those undies called again?
Yes, the undies are called body. Yeah, I would say that's a problem, like urinary incontinence.
I wouldn't say that's a woman problem though, 'cause I'm sure there's plenty of men out there who've had similar accidents.
For guys, I mean,
no, I
have heard of guys shooting themselves when they're doing, a really heavy squat or something like that and having to change their undies.
I think Eddie Hall said that once.
Those are the funny stories that you'll tell your kids one day, and when someone asks you, like, what's your most embarrassing moment, it'll come up in conversation and you got to laugh about it, right?
Other than that, no real strong woman problems, huh?
You're going to get lots of different personalities. You're not going to get along with everybody. Be a good sport. That is one thing that I'm passionate about, like bitching about people and making personal attacks. I don't think that's right. Not everybody's going to be your best friend, but just do your best to be cordial with them in a public space and in an online space as well.
World's Strongest Woman was established in what year? A. 1997, B. 1996, C. 1995, D. 1994.
I'm gonna say that the later it was, because it hasn't been around that. So what was it? 1997.
Yeah, 1997 down to 1994.
97. I'm gonna go with.
Good job. Well done.
Yay!
Andrea Thompson broke the elephant bar world record deadlift at the Arnold Classic this year. How much did she deadlift? A, 615 pounds. B, 617 pounds. C, 621 pounds. D, 632 pounds.
What's that in kilos? I think it was like 280. What's that in kilos? I don't know. I'm gonna say it was like close to 300 kilos, which was that double that, like 620 pounds, maybe? That's a stab, I don't know.
Okay, so you got 615, 617, 621, 632. Which one are you going with?
615.
615?
Lock it in, Eddie.
You sure you want to lock that in? Are you sure?
Go on.
I'm sorry, it was 621 pounds. I think
Okay.
that goes to 282 point something kilos.
Ready to attempt 621 pounds.
Put everything in there. You want to see her do it? Let her hit it. Andrea Thompson.
Wow, come on. She's got.
I thought it was around 280, like an incredible feat of strength.
I thought you had it because you said 620. I like she's got it. But...
Oh,
And I gave you a clue. I said, "Are you sure?" Eddie always does this. He always gives him a little nudge.
My
He nudges
teachers
him.
at school, used to do that too. They'd be like, "Oh, you sure you want to lock in that and like second guess yourself? You should always go with like your gut feeling, whatever first came to mind, which was 620." I don't know.
ASA Nationals versus Arnold Strongman Australia. Should there be one federation?
Oh, it might be easier for all of the athletes if there was one federation. You wouldn't have to pay 2 lots of membership. Also, if we could streamline the weight classes. I mean, for the Arnolds, that's more consistent with the weight classes that are overseas. But for the ASA National, like the weight classes for the women are a bit different, 62, 72, 82, and the 72 weight class doesn't exist overseas. So, if they do win the nationals, then they're like, the lightweights or bulk up for the mid lightweights or bulk up for the mid. It would be not federation. It would be not federation. But I think with a lot of sports, there never is. Like you look at powerlifting, there's multiple federations, the anti-doping and then the doping ones. Like sports, there's different things as well. So I don't think that's ever going to.
The 2 federations, I think they're both good for their own thing.
This is just my own opinion. If each federation could have like a qualifying pathway, like a flow chart or something, like for example, to get to ASA Nationals, you would have to do a local comp. That would qualify you for ASA Nationals. When you do well at ASA Nationals, that would qualify you for these competitions overseas. For like state championships, that qualifies you for the Arnolds. How do you qualify for the Arnolds? That would be another good little like flow chart, because people that come into the sport, they're not going to know unless they ask some questions.
Right. Well, I have to find out the hard way, so that's just one example. So yeah, if someone trains at home and doesn't know anyone, it's hard. It can be hard to kind of figure it out. What would be your advice to a newcomer? How to get started, picking a coach, or the right gym? Engaging on forums or Facebook groups to get information?
Yeah, definitely. Like Strongman can be for anybody. I think a lot of people have this mentality, I have to get fit before I can start, or I have to lose weight before I can start, or get strong before I can start competing. You can still do the training for it. In terms of getting started, following a lot of like the Facebook groups like the Strongman Australia, Starting Strong. For women, there's the Strongwoman Australia. Alice and Dan has been like really awesome with putting up a competition spreadsheet. So depending on what state you're in, she's like listed the events there and how that would qualify you for certain things. And there's like links to the events that the organisers have put on So I think that's such an awesome way to get involved in the sport. Even if you're not looking at competing, but you just want to do it kind of for fun, before coronavirus, just rock up to a competition, meet some people, do some networking, look at getting a coach because that makes you accountable to someone. Follow a program, don't skip the exercises that you don't like doing, and do everything that's on the program because they're obviously there for a reason. And then, you can dabble by doing like a novice comp, and there are those pathways depending on how competitive you want to be.
Besides Strongwoman, what are some of your other hobbies? What do you get to outside of it?
Well, I love cycling. Yesterday I went on a 62-kilometre ride around Brisbane. So there's lots of bikeways here, and I rode along the Brisbane River, starting in South Brizzy, went through Hamilton, past the airport, all the way out to the Boondall wetlands and back. And that took me about 3.5 hours. And surprisingly, my legs aren't too sore because I like doing long rides like that. That's kind of like helps with my conditioning for strongman, and also why my squats are very strong.
Yeah, I recently bought a bike a couple months ago. I bought a bike and haven't regretted it at all. It's really cool.
Yeah, not just long distance cycling, but I also like mountain biking. So there's a couple of trails near where I live where I have 2 bikes, one with the shock absorbers, and so you can go over rocks and logs and things like that, and the other one is just like a road bike with the thin tires, so that's better for speed. Other hobbies I'm quite musical. I play the piano. That's my piano behind me there. So I think definitely during this downtime, I've had more time to practice, and learning a new song, it's very therapeutic. Not just like, I was classically trained since quite a young age, but I also like learning pop songs or, acoustic kind of ones where I can make my own rendition out of it, work out the chords, and then write down the lyrics. And, after working on that for an hour or so, I'll have a new song in my repertoire.
Why don't you play a song right now on the piano? Play something for all of us.
Well, don't put me on the spot.
Come on.
But you can have a look on my and see it's already uploaded.
Okay. You work as a registered nurse.
I do.
You're in the Army Reserve medic and volunteer for St. John's Ambulance. How do you manage shift work and training? Because you do all these things. How do you fit it in?
Well, strongman is a hobby. My career is my livelihood. My career comes first and my lifting comes second. So if I've done a run of night shifts and I haven't slept properly, sometimes it's actually in my best interests not to train that particular day. If you haven't had a good night's sleep and you're feeling fatigued, you're going to put yourself at risk of injury. And sometimes the motivation isn't there either. My work is stressful, and sometimes that helps me with my really heavy days because I'm like, oh my God, these patients are pissing me off today. I'm just going to go and lift some really heavy shit, and that helps me. But then other times I'll come home from night shift, I won't sleep well during the day, the neighbors are clanning around, I can hear traffic, planes, whatever it is. And if I haven't slept well, there's no way I'm going to go into the gym and bust out a heavy session. Like, I just don't. The fatigue is too great. So I think it's really important to listen to your body. And I'm sure other shift workers would agree. It's not probably a good idea to go and PR something when you've been on 4 night shifts and haven't slept.
Yeah, absolutely. I haven't done that, but I've definitely missed sessions due to having doing a long day. You get home and the last thing we do is go lift weights straight after a 12-hour shift. You don't want to do it.
Oh yeah.
But then again, it ends up working out because a lot of the times when you do come back to the gym, you end up hitting a really good session. You might get a PR, and you have your ups and downs. You've got this whole quarantine going on. So how have you been dealing with the changes?
So when we found out that gyms were closing, I know a lot of people were scurrying around to try and buy gym equipment online. I was very fortunate to win a bumper bar a bumper plate set and barbell from my friend's gym opening. There was like a challenge that I had to do, and it was body weight, belt squat, AMRAP in a... So I did 80 kilos, 49 reps, and that won me a $700 like starter kit. So I feel very fortunate that I won that like at the right time. And then my coach had lent me like the floor matting. I've got a 40 kilo log. I've got a 50 kilo stone. I've got some deadlift, the tires for axle deadlift. I've just ordered a utility yoke from Stand or Submit, and I cannot wait to get it. Mason is an absolute genius, the guy that makes all of it, and it converts into like farmer's handles. You can make that into a sled for both pushing and then arm over arm pulling. You can do stone over the yoke. You can do squats, bench, and it's got your safeties there. You can use the dip bar, and it's also got an attachment, a pull-up bar, for like $1,600. So I think that is such an awesome deal. And I should be getting it next week. So that will be enough to definitely keep up my strongman training. But I also had some kettlebells at home, and I've definitely got enough to keep me going. So I feel very fortunate that I have the space for all of that, and I've been able to afford buying myself a few.
How do you find training at home? Like, it's a different environment. Do you can you still perform like this? Can you put in the same amount of effort as you would normally with people behind you or a gym atmosphere, or is it challenging?
I think training comes down to a lot of discipline, because when the motivation runs out and you don't feel like doing it, you just have to make it part of your routine and dig from the bottom of the barrel to actually be like, how badly do I want this? Like last night I was doing dinnie, and the previous week I had such a bad week with lifting them. I was like, I was kind of dreading it. But then after I had a few days off, and then I went and lifted them, and I actually hit my numbers, and I got through my sets without failing. So I was super stoked. And I know sometimes you might not want to do it, but after you do it, you come out of it on the other side feeling a little bit better. I mean, I'm definitely not pushing myself as hard as I would, because training by myself, I don't have a squat rack with safety, so I don't want to go too heavy. I don't want to like drop the weights and things like that, or hurt myself. But I have had like a few friends one at a time like come and train here, and clean everything and mop the whole floors and use all my antibacterial wipes and washing hands. I'm very anal with all my cleanliness, being a nurse and everything. I'm still training, definitely, but it's not as hard as what I would be doing in the gym. Right. I feel like I can't wait to go back and be around my friends, and for me the gym is like, it's a social thing as well, getting to catch up with your friends, and you cheer each other on when they're lifting, you talk about competitions that are coming up, and you just like, sometimes my motivation is talking to other people or seeing newcomers start and introducing them to the sport, and I love that. It's just a funny time for everybody at the moment, but I don't mind training at home. I feel like I've definitely got more time up my sleeve. I'm not having to travel to the gym, and also not talking to people and spending like 3-4 hours trying to get my sessions done.
Yeah, well, that's right. Just remember, there's a lot of value you can get from this. I train alone, so I know what it's like. Big Z himself, he has trained alone before comps in the past. So,
that's a perfect example.
When you do that, when you learn to push yourself and do it all on your own, have no one backing you, you go to a competition and everything just feels way lighter. It really does work.
So do you ever train in a gym, or do you only train?
No, always at home. Always been at home. Yeah.
Do you have stones at home?
Yeah, I got stones. Everything.
You got everything. Okay. So I know that with my home setup, there's some things that I can't do. So I only have a 50 kilo stone that was lent to me. But I can do like stone to shoulder and stone extensions, stone carries of walking and carrying them as part of my conditioning work. But I know if I wanted to go hit a really heavy stone and load it up onto a platform, I would need to go into a gym to do that. Yeah.
Well, I've got a 120 stone, I got a 150 and a 205. I need a 180 because jumping from 150 to 205 can be a
big
pain.
Jump.
Yeah, it's a big jump. So I get worried. So I haven't got everything, but I can train heavy.
at Panthers where I train, there's a 110 and then the next size up is a 140. So, I started doing the 110 and I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, like that's good. But going to 140, not only is it a 30 kilo jump, but the width of it is so much bigger.
Exactly.
So getting arms around, it's huge.
It changes. So I'm doing like a 150, I'm like this, and I do a 205 and I'm out there, So the weight jumps up 55 kilo and the diameter is like 2 inches or something.
Yeah, I think training in isolation, it's either going to make or break people. You're either going to come out completely shredded because you're doing different type of training, because you might not be able to go for your like max lifts when you're in your garage. So a lot of people, I've seen them doing kind of like CrossFit style workouts, or the bloody push-up challenges or things like that.
It's interesting time. It's interesting time. You see what people are made of, for sure.
Yeah, or you're either going to come out and motivated. I know which one I would rather be.
Yeah, that's it. You make it through it. It's the hand you're dealt, and just make it work. You've made it work so far.
Something that the military always told me is you have to adapt and overcome, because some changes will happen and you can't be in control of everything, but you have to be able to accommodate and apply yourself in different ways if things are beyond your control. And I think this is where control freaks might struggle a little bit. The world around them is changing, and they can complain about it and get upset and be really negative, or instead of being a pessimist, you can see that there is something good or something to learn in every sort of situation, and try and change your mindset into thinking, oh, maybe I can really work on my my push-ups, which were a weakness of mine. I'm going to build up my shoulder strength and do this and
like I said, there's value in it. The Big Z did it.
He's such an inspirational athlete, isn't he? I feel so lucky to have met him. I got a selfie with him when I seminar, and it's his head is just this big and I'm tiny compared.
So if you did the Dinnie stones, would that make you the first and only Australian woman or Australian in general to do Dinnie stones?
No, because Lee Holland Keane did it. She's Aussie. Okay. She does have Scottish background. But yeah, she's living down in the ACT in Canberra, and so she was the second woman ever to do it. So before her, Jan Todd, it was 40 years prior, and she only got a partial lift, but Lee got a full lift. So that was just an incredible feat of strength. And since then, there have been 6 other women that have, and I'm going to be next.
Awesome. What inspires you to do this lift, and what drives you to travel to Scotland and also compete in Highland Games? Do you have any connection with Scotland at all?
Yes, my red hair I get from my mother. She is Scottish. She was born in a town called Stirling and spent most of her adult life in Glasgow. So my mother, when I started doing Strongman, she was like, oh, maybe you should go and do this stone lifting, Highland Games. And I was like, yeah, I'll do that later. But I did actually find out about Highland Games. I think last year was my first competition. I did a show up here in Queens, and I placed second at that one. And when I figured out, hey, this is kind of fun, it's still a strength sport in some way, but it's so different to strongman and powerlifting. I love lifting stones. As I said,
it's a cultural thing.
Strongman. Yeah, and it's multidisciplinary. So some Highland Games might have a farmer's carry, or they might have lifting stones up on platforms, natural stones, which I really enjoy. Some of them is stone put, a shot put, and I did that in high school. Some of the other events are the caber toss, which is your traditional one.
I saw that one, yeah.
That is so hard.
It's pushing a telegraph pole or something, It's nuts.
Keeping the balance when you get it up, you're walking back and walking forward, and it's tipping to the side.
So is that a distance thing, or is that's a height thing?
No, so I only learned the rules of this recently. When you flip it, so you've got to hold it underneath, and then you run with it, and when you toss the caber, it's got to land you'll score the highest placing by getting the caber to score at 12 o'clock. So if it lands on the clock face 12 o'clock, that will be your best score. If it lands 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, or if it doesn't make a turn, you'll still get a score, but it won't be a very So it's a very technical event that I'm quite determined to get better at. And, you know, if I was going to Norway to do the FIFA Power Week in the Highland Games, I would have been obviously training that, going down to the little park or the reserve near where I live and just having a go in there. You have to get creative with what you can train with, because it's not something that you would find in your local powerlifting gym.
Right. Yeah. I've got Scottish in me, so I'd probably have to. I'd probably have to.
You grow a ginger beard? Any ginger in there?
I do actually. See if you can see. Hold on. No, I do. I seriously do. I have all red tinges to my beard. But,
well, I mean, I also I met Scotland's strongest woman when I was in Florida last year, and Emma Jane Smith. She is a lovely girl, and she's also lifted the Dinnie stones. And after talking to Lee Holland-Keane and my friend Emma Jane, they've both given me heaps of tips. Also Donna Moore, world's strongest woman. She won the open women, multiple like records and stuff at the Arnold's. She has like given me some tips. Chloe Brennan, she's a lightweight competitor from England. All these women have lifted the Dinnie stones, and I'm so inspired by them, and I feel like, hey, you know, they can do it, I can do it. I think anybody can do it if they set their mind to it. You just have to train for it specifically, and that's how my training is at the moment. That's a goal of mine. I'm still keeping up with my lifts and my other accessory work, but I said, hey, I want to go and lift those Dinnie stones. So my coach is catering my programming so that I can have a successful lift. I mean, it would suck if I went all the way there and then couldn't get them off the ground.
That's an awesome goal to have. That's history right there. So
exactly.
Yeah, you got to get it.
Have you heard of the Ardblair stone?
No. Just
so the Ardblair stones, they're 9 stones, and they start from about, I think it's like 45 kilos, and they go up to about 160 kilos. And you can't use tacky on them. You can only use a little bit of chalk, and you have to load them up onto these barrels. So Donna Moore holds the record. I think she's got all but the last stone, because they get quite slippery. And I think in Strongman, we rely on tacky a lot. When it gets really heavy, we have that advantage to help us lift it. Yeah. But you have to use your pure strength and technique and load them up onto these drums. So that's another feat of strength that I would like to do when I do go to Scotland.
Right. Yeah, not a fan of tacky at all.
I always train stones without them unless I'm doing like a max lift.
Well, comps nowadays, like you're forced to use it because we're going over 200 now for the men's. So
yeah, that would be too hard to do without tacky.
Yeah, but I like the idea of having lighter stones, like maxing out like a stone run that goes to 160, but no tacky. I think that's cool.
Could you do that?
Oh well, they used to do it at World's Strongest Man. They used to have stone runs, and the biggest stone at the end would be like 160. So they just use chalk. It's a different strength. When you put tacky in it, it's like, we want to make round stones to take the handles out, but then we want to add handles on anyway.
Yeah, not to mention like the bruises and the crazy cuts and scrapes that you get from doing stones. I mean, I actually got these forearm sleeves made recently because I bruise.
What's your biggest Atlas stone?
I think I've got 115 just to the low 1 meter. I've got 110 to 1.2 meters. I've done that for 2 sets of doubles. And I think at the Arnold's this year, I was going to go for a 120. That was going to be a PR for me for the max stone event.
When you zero an event or have a bad comp, you have life's adversities get in the way. How do you deal with your emotions like an adult? Or in your words, do you throw tantrums?
Sometimes I throw tantrums on the inside. Yeah. How do you deal with them? You've zeroed an event before. How did you
I've never zeroed an event before.
Oh, really?
No.
Okay.
I've had bad events. Terrible events.
How did you deal with it when you had a really bad event? When you know that you could have done better because you smashed it in training, but on the day it didn't work out for you. How did you deal with it?
Honestly, I haven't done enough comps to have that happen to me yet. If I'm doing good in training, I always do better at comps because I'm one of those people that feed off the competition circumstances.
Yeah.
So I always do better in comp. But how do I deal with doing a bad event? Just shake my head at myself. It's like, whatever. You just gotta move on. I've never screamed or anything or done anything like that. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, like the Viking press, for example, I'll use this as an example. I zeroed it in South Africa, and I also zeroed it when I went to America. So, you know, 2 international comps, I didn't score. I was upset, sure, but I knew going there that the weight was like more than my max. So if I did even get 1 rep, I was like, oh, it's going to be a flippin' miracle. So I kind of was prepared for that. So I just took it on the chin and went, yeah, I've got other events I can make up points in. However, if you do an event where you know you can like do quite well, this is one thing that happened to me. Queensland Strongest Woman in 2017. I think that was only like my 3rd comp or something like that. And there was like a strongman squat event, and when they were like measuring the heights, I didn't have my lifting shoes on, which, you know, I learned from this mistake. And you know, I set my height here and there, and you know, when you have your shoes on, you've got that extra heel, so you've got more leverage. So I actually made the event so much harder for me, and I zeroed the event. Whereas in training, I was getting, you know, 5, 6, 7 reps at that particular weight, and it was really disappointing because I thought, hey, I'm gonna like pick up some points on this event because it's a strong one for me, but I fucked it up with, you know, not measuring the height properly. So I definitely learned from that. If you do make a mistake or if you have a bad event, I'm sure there's a lesson that is to be taught because of that. And rather than throwing a tantrum and swearing and, you know, pissing people off with your behavior, try and learn from it. Another example was ASA Nationals 2017. There was like a carry medley where you had to pick up these logs and then load them onto these platforms. And in training, I got a splinter in my hand because they were like wooden logs. And then on the competition day, I was like, oh, I'm going to wear these gloves to like protect me from getting a splinter. But I'd never trained with these gloves. And then all of a sudden on comp day, I thought, yeah, I'm going to use them. And I'd had no dexterity. I picked them up and these implements were like slipping out of my hands. And I came last in that. Oh, I was like so dumb to think that, but that was Nationals was my 2nd comp.
Did you also tape it around your wrists so you couldn't pull it off at the time?
No, they were like gloves that I had from going like bike riding, and so that my hands were like slipping around inside them, and also when I picked up these implements, I couldn't feel like where my fingers were and where they needed to be. So that was a lesson. Do not do an event in competition that you haven't trained for. You need to practice your craft and you need to perfect it a certain way in your training and execute that in the competition.
Yeah, if you're going to do something like use gloves, you should use it a few times in training to know what you're in for. You shouldn't have to find out on the day.
Lesson learned, right?
Big time. Anyway, having said that, we'll wrap this up, eh?
Sure.
Any coaches you want to thank or sponsors?
Yeah, my coach. For sure. Yeah, my coach. So Colin Webb, he's an excellent coach. I started with him with my powerlifting back in 2016. I just used to have a PT as my trainer, and the first powerlifting comp I did, he was there with a bunch of other clients, and I remember seeing how awesome he was with them, and I asked him where his gym was, and I went in and checked it out for like a casual session, and I felt like honestly part of the family from stepping in there. People were friendly and welcoming, asking if you needed a spot or any sort of help. And I did try out a couple of other gyms in Brisbane before I decided that Panthers was hands down the best one. And so I've been a member there for 4 years now, and Colin has seen me through multiple national and international competitions. So I'm very grateful to have him on my side and helping me get stronger to achieve. A good coach is very, very important. Someone who supports you, not just in an online forum if you're doing online coaching, but someone who is there for you on competition day as well. the mental, believing in you if you might not believe in yourself. Because a lot of competitors, they fill their heads with doubt and they think, I can't do this, it's too heavy, or they get anxiety on the competition floor with lots of people watching them. But I thrive on that. I love competing. It's I feel like I've accomplished something myself, even just showing up. And if you can pull off some PBs or hit something that you've never done before, that's just like, it's an incredible feeling. And that's why I keep coming back for more, because you just, you can have bad, but the good ones, they outweigh the bad by a mile.
Thanks for the interview,
No
Red.
dramas. All right, I'll talk to you soon.
All right,
Thanks for your
talk to you soon,
time.
mate. Yeah.
See ya.
Dance for me, dance for me, dance for me, oh, oh, oh.